Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about a finale that I think left many of us in a state of quiet shock, a state of confusion, and maybe even slight disappointment. We're going to talk about the finale of the third and final season of Squid Game. Let's be honest, we've been on an incredibly long and difficult journey with Seong Gi-hun. We saw his victory in the first game. We lived through his despair, his thirst for revenge, his resistance in the second season. We were waiting for him to finally press that damned red button in the finale, for him to bring down that entire monstrous organization. We were waiting for triumph, for fireworks, for the kind of victory we're used to seeing in movies, and instead we got a sacrifice. At the very end, with victory in his grasp, our hero does the unthinkable. He sacrifices his entire mission for a single child. And the first loudest question screaming in our minds is, why? Was it all for nothing? Was this a defeat? Well, I've thought about this for a long time. I've rewatched it, reread it, pieced it all together, and I've come to a conclusion that I want to share with you today. To understand this shocking finale and to see in it not a defeat, but the greatest victory, you need to follow not one, but two stories at the same time. The first story is the one on the surface, the external story of a cruel, all-consuming game that mutated into a global, ruthless organization created for one purpose only, to break and dehumanize. And the second story is the quiet one, the invisible one. It's the internal story of player 456, Seong Gi-hun, the story of his soul, the story of how, before our very eyes, he completes the final, most important stage of his journey, the journey from a broken, obsessed avenger to a whole, free individual. The finale of the third season is the point where these two stories, the external and the internal, collide in a final, decisive battle. And as we'll see, the winner isn't the one who presses the button. Let's unravel this mystery together. So, to understand Gi-hun's final choice, we need to clearly understand who he had become by the start of the third season. And this is crucial. He is no longer the eternal child we met at the very beginning. Remember him? Infantile, drowning in debt, living off his elderly mother, believing that a win at the racetrack or some other lucky ticket would suddenly solve all his problems. He was waiting for a miracle from the outside so he wouldn't have to grow up on the inside. The game broke that child. The loss, the pain, the betrayal, all of it burned the immaturity out of him. But something else grew in its place, something just as dangerous. By the third season, he had transformed into his opposite, the broken avenger. His entire identity now hinges on two things, trauma and revenge. His only goal, his very air, his reason for living, is to destroy the system. He sincerely believes that this one grand external act, the destruction of the organization, will finally heal his internal wounds, bring him peace, atone for his guilt over the deaths of his friends. Do you feel the subtle irony? It's the exact same trap as in the first season, but on a completely new level. Before, he believed an external miracle in the form of money would solve his problems. Now, he believes an external miracle in the form of revenge will bring him healing. He is still looking for the solution on the outside, not from within. And his personal struggle against the organization is the perfect, most sophisticated trap for a man like him. The system gives him a purpose. It gives meaning to his suffering. It makes him believe that the path of destruction and uncompromising struggle is the only path to justice. But in reality, the more fiercely he fights, the deeper this conflict drags him into the very same vortex of cynicism, cruelty, and dehumanization he is so desperately trying to escape. And the third season shows us this with surgical precision. Now, the most brilliant thing about the third season is how Gi-hun's struggle against the organization begins to mirror the mechanisms of the first season's game. The system is essentially telling him, you want to play against us? Fine. But you will play by our rules without even realizing it. Let's look at these mechanisms. There are three. The first mechanism, depersonalization, from a man to a symbol. Remember how in the first season the players were stripped of their names and given numbers? deprived of their clothes, their past, their identities, turned into faceless pieces in green tracksuits. The goal was simple: erase the person to make it easier to break them. Now look at what happens to Gi-hun in the third season. No one is giving him a number anymore. He himself voluntarily gives up his identity. He's no longer Seong Gi-hun, who once loved his daughter and cared for his mother. No, he is now a function. He is a symbol of the resistance. The system's enemy number one. His personal life, his own feelings, his small human joys and sorrows, all of it is pushed to the background. Everything is sacrificed for the great mission, and herein lies his greatest vulnerability. In fighting a faceless system, he himself risks becoming a faceless symbol. But this is precisely where his internal transformation begins. We see moments where he confronts the consequences of his struggle. He sees innocent victims, people who became mere collateral damage, and he starts to understand that his opposition isn't just a diagram on a wall. It's real, broken human lives. And for the first time in a long time, a question appears in his eyes. Who am I in this fight? Still a man or just a weapon? The second mechanism, the distortion of values, from savior to perpetrator. This is perhaps the most painful part. Remember the marbles game? When the game took the brightest things people had, friendship, trust, affection, and turned them into weapons for elimination. When Gi-hun had to deceive the old man Oh Il-nam to survive, in the third season this mechanism repeats itself. But this time it's not the game that triggers it, it's Gi-hun himself. To fight a monster, he is forced to use its methods. We see him making cruel compromises. We see him sacrificing allies who trust him. We see him using people as pawns in his grand strategic game. He justifies it with the greater good. This sacrifice is necessary for the overall victory, he tells himself. But this is his encounter with his shadow, with that dark side of himself he never knew existed. He sees that his righteous anger is causing him to commit acts that are not so far from the ice-cold cynicism of the game's creators. He entered this fight to save people, but his actions increasingly lead to tragic outcomes. And this experience completely shatters his black and white view of the world. He realizes there are no absolutely good or bad guys, that the line between hero and villain is incredibly, terrifyingly thin. And this is a painful but absolutely necessary discovery for his maturation. He accepts the fact that even the noblest of intentions can lead straight to hell. The third mechanism, the corruption of hope, the final trap. In the first season, the symbol of this poisoned hope was the giant, transparent piggy bank. It filled with money after every death. It visually linked the players' hope for the future with the demise of their comrades. It made them wish for each other's deaths. In the third season, Gi-hun's goal itself becomes that piggy bank, that very red button that is supposed to destroy the entire organization. All his hope for peace, for redemption, for a future is tied to this single global act of destruction. He believes that when he presses it, the pain will go away. It will all be over. The world will be a better place. But herein lies the most diabolical, the most brilliant trap of the game. This button is not just a tool. It is the final exam handed to him by the system itself. The creators of the game are desperate for him to press it, because the moment he sacrifices a specific life for an abstract greater good, they truly win. They will have proven their main thesis, that nothing is sacred, and that even the best of men will eventually accept their rules and their cynical logic. That button is their chance to make Gi-hun just like them, forever. And now we are ready to understand his final act, and to understand why this isn't just a good ending, but the only possible happy ending to this story. When Gi-hun faces this final choice, to press the button but let the child die, or to save the child but lose everything, he is facing the ultimate trap of his entire life. And the choice is no longer made by the broken avenger, nor by the eternal child. This choice is made by a whole, mature individual, a man who has been through it all, who has known both his light and his darkness, but has refused to be a slave to either. His final act is not an impulse, not a weakness, not a defeat. It is a conscious, hard-won blow against the entire philosophy of the game. Look at what's really happening. By pressing the button, he would have won the battle, but lost the most important war, the war for his soul. He would have become the final product of the game, its ideal graduate. He would have proven the creators right, but he refuses. By saving one specific, living, warm life instead of an abstract idea of victory over the system, he reclaims his own humanity and that of the child. By refusing to make the final, most terrible sacrifice, an innocent person, for the sake of his great goal, he chooses compassion over ruthless strategy. And by turning his back on his red button, on his poisoned hope, he steals the Creator's greatest triumph from them. He breaks their logic. He proves they are not omnipotent. Gi-hun didn't just win the game, he quit it. He rendered it worthless. And in this lies the great, quiet triumph of the finale. Gi-hun's story reminds us that the most terrifying prison is not the one with bars and guards. It's the one we build for ourselves from the rules of someone else's game, from the belief that an external victory can heal an internal pain. We are shown that the path to true, genuine freedom sometimes lies in rejecting the very prize that seemed to be the meaning of your entire life. And that in each of our lives, a moment can come when the biggest win, the greatest victory, is to find the strength to look at the game forced upon you, at its rules, at its prizes, and to calmly, firmly say, no. Not because you are weak, but because you have finally become strong enough not to play games where the grand prize is your own soul. Gi-hun's final act is not the end of his struggle. It is its true and only possible conclusion. He didn't destroy the system physically. He stripped it of its right to exist by proving its philosophy is a lie. He proved that there is something in this world that cannot be calculated, bought, or broken, and that is the free human soul.